I'll see you at the finish line. Wherever that may be.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and thank you for tuning in for the McJeffrey 500, the podcast where I count down my 500 favorite films and make my friends watch them one movie at a time. My name is Jeff. It is February 17th, 2015, and my co-host today, making his final solo appearance for couple months at least, is currently Mr. Scott. Scott, how goes it? Good, sir.
Going well. Thank you.
All right, hey, glad to have you. Thank you for. We are actually recording from his office in the Hall of Justice in Sacramento.
Well, not the Hall of Justice, but it's a justice-related building.
Okay, well,
not to give full disclosure of our secret hideouts.
Fair enough.
But it definitely has a justice-y overtone.
Absolutely, it has a nice big seal on the front. It's very, very sexy. My notes just fell. I don't even know where they went. Well, they're right there. Why don't they go over there? How'd they get over there? Okay. This is good podcasting stuff here. Anyways, I'm going to look at those right now. All right. So we are on to podcast number 494. 494? 493?
I thought we were on 493.
Maybe it's 490. You know what? You're right. It's 493. 493.
I definitely listened to The Lady Vanishes today while I was at work.
Oh, lovely.
And
I feel the stride. I feel we are hitting strides.
It definitely gave me a lot to think about. 494 was The Lady Vanishes, otherwise known as The Whitening.
Oh, very good.
So we're on 493.
493 is the place to be, and that's where we are today. Before we reveal what said movie is, and I even set my timer, whatever. Let's talk about what we've seen in the last 7 days or so. Scott, please fill me in.
Theatrically, I've only actually had time to see one movie that I probably should have seen several weeks, months ago.
Okay.
Or in some people's estimation, maybe I shouldn't have seen it all, because I went and saw the final installment of The Hobbit yesterday.
Oh, wait, where? Is that movie still playing somewhere?
Well, the nice thing about the city of Elk Grove is that it has not one but two movie theaters, and all of them show movies that, for the most part, are either about to be released on I almost said home video, but on DVD. It's well past on demand.
Okay, fair enough.
So I went to the Century Theaters in Elk Grove and took in the Battle of the Five Armies, all by my lonesome. I took on all of Middle Earth by myself.
Were you the only one in the theater?
No, the theater was almost completely packed.
Really?
So,
well, it must have been the smaller
and
theaters.
I was absolutely punished for waiting as long as I did, because by the time I got there, pretty much the only seats remaining were in the front two rows, which was fine, because in the smaller theaters over there, they give you about 15, 20 feet between the screen and where the seating starts.
Nice.
So you're not craning your neck too much. And the theater's small enough that it holds about, 100 or so people. But unfortunately, I had the misfortune of sitting behind the two people who not only decided to mouth breathe through the entire movie, but also give not quite a play-by-play, more like a summary of what happened 30 seconds earlier.
Jesus.
To each other.
Do you get the impression that this is also their first time seeing the movie, or you think they're repeat viewers?
No, this was their first time seeing it. I felt like it may have been their first time seeing a movie.
A movie? Like when you take a child to their first movie. Which I actually had a friend who did that recently. She's all of I think 3, and apparently she did very well, except that she doesn't understand the whole act of whispering when asking questions.
And I have a certain degree of tolerance for someone who's young, they're excited. One of my friends went to go see a movie, and I forget what it was, but it was something that was, action-packed, and it had enough appeal that it was acceptable enough for a family film. And there was a kid that was sitting, just a little bit away from him, and just got so excited that, like, he needed to exclaim things to his parent that was there accompanying him. And at first he was going to be irritated about it. He was like, no, I'm going to take a step back. I need to think about the fact that this is a kid who's, he's 6 or 7 years old.
He's enthusiastic.
It's something that's, awed him so much that he has to, articulate it, using his words, and he's trying to express that. So, maybe if the kid needs to go up and act like a Muppet, at the front of the theater, that's what the kid needs to do. I mean, you're not going to stifle that. But when the kid is a 25 or so year old,
and mouth breather to boot,
my tolerance is a little bit more limited.
And in a perfect world, you would have moved to a different seat, but no different seat was available at the time.
And it would have been an inconvenience to anybody else in the theater if I was to get up at that point and move around. So I was just like, you know what, I'll take one for the team. And thankfully, they were reasonable enough that when I gave them a steely glare, they got the hint, and I could deal with them. I mean, you have to take it, relative to, you have to read the room a little bit.
Sure.
And I was okay with them being like, oh, or, because there's a difference between, excitement, even for something as mundane as a big budget action adventure movie.
Sure.
But,
they would have been fun in 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
Tits! I went through and we'll actually talk about the movie in a second.
Sure.
But, I mean, I went to go see, because I see all the Oscar noms with my mom, I saw Theory of Everything. So, we're not picking on younger people or people our age. Old people are just as bad, because we were in the theater, and to my far right, like maybe a row behind me, some guy decided to up and pull out his phone and start playing Candy Crush.
Ooh.
Now, it's one thing if you're the illumination, is corner of the eye, I can move to, like, one seat over to, my mom's left. But the fucker left the sound on. So, you hear the drops and you hear the sweet. And he seems to have no conception of the fact that he's in a theater full of people. And I also casted the steely stare, but it's more of a sad stare, like, dude, really? Dude? And he inevitably just left the movie. Do
you think that he had paid to see the movie?
I would have thought so, because everybody in that theater was really old. And I assumed all old people loved, Stephen Hawking biopics, and this one did not. He didn't seem like the kind of guy that,
would be playing Candy Crush either.
Yeah, there you
Let
go.
alone in a crowded movie house.
Exactly. He left about halfway through the film. I'm pretty sure he got more steely stares than myself. I tried to ignore him the best of my ability, and more or less succeeded. But I was starting to think theater etiquette was getting better, because I really, prior to that incident, I think it's been good 6 months before I can recall being completely annoyed by somebody in a movie theater. Incensed even.
The same friend of mine who had the experience with the little kid in the theater, he and I went to go see James Gunn's
Guardians of the Galaxy?
No.
Super?
No, before that, it's Slither. Which I can't remember if we got passes to see it or if we just went. I think I had a pass to see it, but we actually paid to see it. Which, as his first major motion picture, not my favorite, but one of the classic theater etiquette moments happened where someone behind you hear, number one, you hear the phone ring audibly. Mm-hmm. Number two, the person answers it. Number three, the person says, hey, I'm in a movie. Number 4, the person proceeds to continue with their conversation.
Because the person on the other line, undaunted by this declaration, decides to push through with their agenda.
And number 5, the person, upon continuing the conversation, does not move from his seat, does not attempt to conceal the sound of his voice.
My God.
So far as I could tell, the person was not a member of an emergency medical responder.
Even they have the grace to actually walk out of the theater to take the phone call.
So my friend was like, "Are you serious?" And it nearly came to blows.
See, I love it when they get defensive.
Because somehow the person letting you know that your 5 strikes are almost 2 outs.
Yep.
That wasn't enough to put him off. No. So,
I've bared witness to people who have done that very same thing, and I'm like I said, I'm very, what's the term? I'm pacifist. I will move, because I don't know if this guy is, I don't know what this dude's capable of,
and that's the thing, you really don't know. Another example of not knowing the direction things are going to go. So somebody in a theater, we were seeing X-Men First Class. We were at the Cinedomes on Greenback. Is that still Sacramento? Or is that considered Citrus Heights? Or is that considered...
I think that's still technically... I think it's good. I think it's considered Sacramento.
Anyway, one of my favorite theaters in Sacramento, even after the remodel, it was like the old-style domed theaters. It was actually called the Cinedomes.
I recall.
When I first moved here.
That was my go-to theater. I saw Beetlejuice there. I got Career Opportunities. Well, those 2 movies.
I think it's there. I think it's like the Century, like Greenback 16 or something.
Back in the day, yeah. Well, that's what it is now, actually.
So we were there. It's one of my very favorite theaters to go to a movie. Usually the crowds are pretty decent.
Yes.
It tends to be a little less busy because it's, halfway between the heart of Sacramento and then the heart of the suburbs.
Yeah.
So usually people are on their best behavior if there's like a special event kind of thing going on there.
Well-mannered.
Yeah. So we went there to watch X-Men First Class, and we were probably about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way from the movie, and we saw something fly across the theater. And I guess it was an empty water bottle or something. So then whoever got hit with it decided to retaliate by throwing a full water bottle across the theater.
Not knowing who was the assailant.
They assumed that they hit their intended target. Who knows if they did or not.
A 5-year-old child.
So we're like, did that just happen? So we get outside the theater, and before we know it, my wife was there to bear witness to this. Her best friend Trisha was there. I believe Keith, my friend who usually was there for the first 2 stories, he was there, and then another friend of mine from high school was there. We step outside the theater, all of a sudden, Keith gets hit in the chest. Like he had been shot point blank. We find out that what hit him was an old style cellular flip phone.
Oh wow.
So the flip phone has hit him. The next thing we know, one of the guys who presumably was either the person who instigated or was the recipient of
retaliator
is jump kicking the other guy straight into the crotch.
Wow.
So we're just like, what just happened? Number 1, I get hit with a flip phone. Number 2, someone just jump kicked a guy in the dick. Number 3, all of a sudden it starts with a Elmer Fudd, Daffy Duck, Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner chase around the parking lot of the Greenback theaters. They are jumping on top of the hoods of cars.
Oh, Jesus.
So this is going on, and then the fight breaks out, and security, theater security is, one step below Rent-A-Cop as is.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to respond to this. The police get called out. And the whole time we're just like, I can't believe we just saw this. I think we were one of the last screenings of the day. We may have shut down the parking lot after that happened, just kind of in collective disbelief over what we'd just seen. So, you never know. Anyway, thankfully, going to see The Hobbit.
Back to The Hobbit.
Not nearly as eventful. And like I said, the people were reasonable enough that they got the hint after I gave them the, over-the-shoulder, like...
Blink steel?
Yeah. Just, I went to my left. So, yeah, blue steel was deployed.
Well, that's good. And that was good that it didn't get escalated.
So that left me with the movie, which I had sent a note to one of my friends who's another attorney with the state. Mm-hmm. She's kind of a film buff, and especially like when anything's like sci-fi, fantasy, comic book based.
Sure.
She'll let me know what she thinks. So she went and saw The Kingsman this week, and
I saw that as well,
and was very pleased with it. And I'm actually
fun movie.
I'm really excited to go see it because I enjoyed the source material. But then I gave her my thoughts on The Hobbit, and I'll read them to you now.
All right.
I finally went and saw the last Hobbit movie yesterday, since I've ran the other 22 miles of the marathon. I figured I might as well finish what I start. It was really tedious, which in comparison to Return of the King, the last installment of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which I found to just be meh, seemed far worse.
Wow.
Worst part was probably about 30 minutes before the movie actually ended, when I realized that Peter Jackson was going to try to hit all the emotional beats of the story, and that, at a minimum, he was going to need at least 20 minutes to do it. It was all I could do to stay in my seat. Also, the theater, for some reason, was still completely packed, and I had two mouth breathers sitting behind me who needed to reiterate everything that happened just 20 seconds earlier at just under full volume.
Oh,
I'd say, all in all, a movie viewing experience, and as the final installment of an epic series, it felt a lot like driving home 4 hours after you've had a pretty alright day at the beach, but along the way you ate too much, you got a sunburn, so the drive home just felt impossible. Mm. I'm happy I went, but it took its pound of flesh.
Yeah.
And then I mentioned what else I wanted to see after that. But it was, that was pretty much how it felt. It just felt bloated, and I finally understood what a lot of my friends had been saying about the second installment of The Hobbit, that they were really starting to feel like maybe it's because they were familiar with the source material. They were like, this is a short story, and you've made it into a 3-part epic.
That's your first problem.
Yeah.
Well, I saw the first one. I went essentially with a girlfriend. No, wait. I don't remember. I went with a girl. And her family. And I was done after that because actually the Hobbit movie made me actually reconsider whether or not I really enjoyed Lord of the Rings that much in retrospect. But
I remember the first time I ever watched the Fellowship of the Ring, I was watching it in my dorm room on a pirated copy that one of the other, I think it was a foreign exchange student, had procured a copy of, and passed on to me. And I was so blown away at that moment that I was like, oh my god, a sword and sorcery movie can actually be something other than just a bunch of blonde guys with curly hair, like Dragon Slayer, Reign of Fire, every dragon movie, so pretty much
dink,
up until
just dinkness.
So I was so blown away by the first one that I was like, oh, I must have seen Two Towers 3 times in the theater, and I think Return of the King was where I was like, it's just too much of one thing.
Well, I would see, and that's probably my favorite one of them. But I think it comes down to it because it has so many good high spots. It has, and maybe that's what I was looking for, because I was not a Two Towers fan. in comparison to the first and third one, where the third one, maybe I was just glad to see it all wrap up, albeit in a nice bloated fashion. But I don't applaud in theaters because I think it's dumb. But I applauded on 2 occasions, admittedly, watching that film. So I guess that says something.
I don't know. Maybe it's just that I get so caught up in the introduction, the world building, thing that sets all the parameters for what you're going to see.
And I love the first one for that.
That, I get so focused on that anything that's beyond a perfect... It's kind of hard to have an ending live up to a perfect introduction for me.
Yeah, especially when there's like 4 endings.
And a lot of people don't know how to stick the landing. Mark Miller, who wrote what Kingsman was based on, The Secret Service, that's my biggest problem with his writing as a comic writer, is that he does this great job of giving you the hook, giving you the cast of characters.
He's all about the journey.
He gets you there, but he almost never sticks the landing, which was the thing that surprised me about Secret Service as a comic series, is that it was one of the few times that the ending was actually
satisfying.
It was satisfying. It lived up to it. It didn't feel like it was... It seems like a lot of times his ending is just kind of a middle finger to the audience or the reader, which, if you read the comic version of Wanted, that's almost quite literal.
Indeed. I actually have.
So,
well, I would recommend Kingsman: Secret Service. I actually, side note on that movie, because we actually probably should start talking about what we're about to see. I went in that movie knowing nothing about it, not even that it was... I assumed it was like PG-13, like an X-Men movie. I learned pretty quickly into the film.
It was a hard R.
This is a pretty hard-ass... This is kick-ass R, basically. And that definitely got my hopes up. And like I said, it's not anything deep, but it's, as far as in the Matthew Vaughn canon, which, he did X-Men, Layer Cake, and Kick-Ass. It stands amongst. It's highly entertaining. I wouldn't say it's necessarily deep, but
it's junk food.
Delicious junk food, high quality,
like high end junk food, like fair food, like a donut sandwich, or
or some overpriced deep fried cheesecake on a stick. It's beautiful.
A corn dog with a potato inside.
Yeah, and it has Colin Firth in one of the finest choreographed fight scenes I can recall seeing in quite some time.
I get Colin Firth, Colin Farrell, and Colin Quinn all mixed up.
And they're all completely different people.
I know.
All right, let's get to what we're about to watch. All right, here we go. This is fun. Released in 1980.
The year before I was born.
All right. Once again, Netflix kind of misleading with their description, but I'm going to read it anyway. Michael J. Fox makes his film debut in this raucous teen comedy about college students of all stripes, jocks, geeks, and preppies, who join in on a crazy all-night scavenger hunt that has them running around campus towards the big finish. We are going to watch...
Hold on, let me guess.
Go.
Number one, not his debut. His debut was class of 1984.
Did that come out before 1980?
I believe it did.
Well, maybe... Well, he's listed as Michael Fox in this movie, so maybe that's the first appearance of Michael J. Fox.
And then... Night Shift? No.
Michael J. Fox is not in Night Shift.
Sorry. I just guessed.
No. Okay. No, we are watching Midnight Madness.
I'm excited. I like scavenger hunt movies.
And
we'll talk about some of my favorite ones when we get back.
And we got snacks.
Oh, no.
We will be eating Oreos and marshmallows.
America's... Sorry, Milk's favorite cookie. And America's favorite cookie.
Indeed, indeed. And we will return after the movie.
Midnight Madness, the ultimate game that requires sophisticated strategy and rigorous self-control. Midnight Madness, it's about
girls. I thought you'd never ask.
It's contagious. It's Midnight Madness. Catch it at a theater near you.
And we have returned. We had just finished watching the early 80s masterpiece that is Midnight Madness. Alright, so I certain movies. On this list, people will learn eventually that no one would call high art. And since this is not what I consider the greatest movies of all time, these are my favorite movies of all time, you're going to come across something that is unapologetically nostalgia-driven. And this is such a movie. Midnight Madness. I will ask for your feelings on the movie in 1 second, but let me explain how this movie came into my life. This was an HBO staple when I was growing up and being babysitted by various babysitters while my mother was working hard to support 2 children. And amongst movies that were basically played on a loop, you had your Gremlins, you had your Ghostbusters, you had your Back to the Future. And for some reason, Midnight Madness was one of those HBO movies that was constantly on. And it essentially tickled my fancy. Because I love the idea of essentially it's a scavenger hunt of sorts. Instead of finding objects, you're finding clues leading to another location, another clue leading to a big reward, or in this case, a trophy and bragging rights.
And you have to also remember the element that you have to have teams, generally grouped by whatever personality types compose the team members, and they usually all flock together. So in Midnight Madness, you have your general good-natured all-American kids.
Yeah, the ones that from the beginning of the movie are gonna, spoiler, win it.
You got your nerds. You got your jocks.
You got your
you got your
girls. Or are we calling them feminists, or are we gonna call them just?
I think it comes down to the great Homestar Runner trope of Teen Girl Squad.
Teen Girl Squad. All right.
So and so. What's her face?
And the twins.
And the ugly one.
Of course.
Or pretty one, fat one, funny one.
And the other fat one.
In this one, it was the pretty one, the strong one, and the 2 fat twins.
That's right. That's good.
Lulu and
Peggy. Peggy and Lulu.
Played by some rather large, very...
And in charge.
Generously portioned young women.
Who... they come across as... These are probably twins that maybe showed up on the Gong Show once.
They showed up in the Gong Show movie, as a matter of fact.
Oh, hello.
And you correctly identified them as having seen them in Hamburger, the motion picture.
And
then apparently they were uncredited as identical twins in the movie Baby Boom.
Which I've also seen with Diane Keaton.
So you've seen their entire oeuvre.
I never saw the Gong Show movie, in all fairness.
Okay.
That was just a shot in the dark, but that tickles me that my assumption was correct. And then, of course, the last team is essentially the villain team, the Boo, which, and of course, like in all movies, tends to be the most interesting characters in the whole movie are the villains.
Really? More interesting than, the harrowing, story of brotherhood falling apart because all the young one wants is attention, and he's misbehaving, and
just because he wants his older brother's attention. Michael J. Fox shows up about a quarter into the film. He's about to run away from home because nobody remembers his birthday. He was going to get on a bus to San Francisco. But his brother, played by David Naughton,
of Hot Dog the Movie fame.
Or American Werewolf in London.
No, Hot Dog the Movie.
Okay, Hot Dog the Movie it is. Well, we got a hot dog cast and we got a hamburger cast. Do we have any Porky's people in this? No?
Stephen Furst looks like he could have been in Porky's.
I would have.
But he was in Animal House.
He was in Animal House. And Eddie Deason, basically our 3 main character actors of the 80s, Eddie Deason, Stephen Furst, and David Naughton, represented here. Of course, Michael J. Fox ends up being the biggest of all of them.
The darling.
In due time. But this is actually his first film. And he played...
And I will concede that. I thought it was class of 1984, but apparently class of 1984 was made in 1982. This was made in 1980.
There you go. No judgment here. Hey, I believed you. You convinced me at that moment. But yeah, so Michael J. Fox, and if you look at the DVD cover, he's like front and center, like he's the big star of the movie, which is a complete and utter misnomer. So ultimately, he joins the team reluctantly. His first line in the movie is, "This game is stupid," and eventually he turns around and earns the love of his brother. Only after his brother's would-be girlfriend guilts him into because he forgot his birthday. But I'm getting off track here. Why I love this movie. I don't know why I love this movie. Watching it now, I see there's a lot of cheap jokes, a lot of bad stereotypes. Basically, fat is evil, or giggly and just, to be laughed at. Ugly people don't deserve dates. Learned that. And, well, I guess, nerds. I guess the nerds came off. I mean, they were nerds, but, they kind of got the girls at the end, so... It's okay to be nerds as long as you're not fat, ladies and gentlemen.
I can tell you why I feel it's okay to like this movie.
Okay, tell me.
There is a concept I believe exists, which is called Saturday afternoon good. It's not necessarily that a movie is an excellently made film, well acted, well told, well put together, really good in any measure of standard goodness.
Yeah.
So much as there's such a thing that a movie can be good just because on a Saturday afternoon when a movie's edited for television, network, or broadcast television, rather, it's still enjoyable. It's still funny. You can still laugh at it. It's an escape.
Undemanding.
It makes you feel smart, which this movie did time and time again. I kept and that's the great thing about these like scavenger hunt type movies. Like, of course, it's a mad world.
Yes.
Or the motion picture Scavenger Hunt, another staple of cable television, which was showed us a young Arnold Schwarzenegger playing, oddly enough, a gym instructor named Arnold.
Oh, stretch there.
And even kicking later down the line to remakes of movies like Rat Race.
Indeed.
So,
and I get, you can also, and not so much the same, but like you get the whole, it's all wacky races to me ultimately, because Cannonball Run begot from this. Maybe
it's not a very far jump to get from this to Cannonball Run, or really most of the movies of the 1980s that were huge blockbusters just because they were dumb fun, which after some pretty, heavy times in the late 60s and 70s, I think we were ready to be stupid.
Okay. And the 80s brought us tons of stupid. And this came out in February 1980, so it basically kicked the doors open as far as that goes. However, the movie was a flop when it was released. This was actually Walt Disney.
I'm shocked. I don't know if you can...
No. So am I. I can't believe it.
You have a poor man Scott Baio and David Naughton, and that isn't,
That's, yeah. I don't know if Scott Baio would have...
What did better, this or Corvette Summer?
I see. I always assumed Corvette Summer went straight to video, so I'm gonna assume it was pretty neck and neck here. I believe this movie made less than $3 million in the box office.
Are you trying to tell me that the ultimate prize of this movie, a trophy, or in this case a plaque and bragging rights, wasn't enough to get audiences in the door?
No. Really or not, Roger Ebert gave this movie a whopping 1 star. Not a fan. Which is too bad, because he totally missed the point, obviously.
I think the thing we haven't mentioned is that this is a Disney movie.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that. This was actually Walt Disney, this was their attempt to be a little bit more edgier. Because movies prior to this were, either live-action G or their animated films. This was actually their second PG movie right after The Black Hole. And a couple of years later, we'd get Something Wicked This Way Comes, which I don't know if you've seen that movie. But
I have not.
It is quite violent. It's quite violent, quite dark, and I remember it creeped me out as a kid. So this movie doesn't really have that much objectionals. And I mean, there's a little sexual innuendo here and there. You got some cleavage. You got some.
You have some wet T-shirts. You have some casual racism, including an old stereotype of a white woman calling an African American police officer, quote, a big ape.
Big ape. Which is I guess it's an arrestable offense.
You had, every stereotype known to man, pretty much.
Except for Asian.
You had a teenage Charles Bronson lookalike who, right down to a switchblade.
Named Blade. Has no lines in the movie. Smiles at the very end. In fact, you actually forget he's there. I gotta get around to watching this movie again just to watch Blade, because I think he kind of blends in with everything. Because you know he's amongst the group, but your eyes never focus on him. I assume he's playing with his switchblade the whole movie.
He doesn't really chew the scenery.
No, he's no Eddie Deason, that's for damn sure. Anyway,
and then you have the maniacal games master at the center of this,
Leon.
A guy named Leon, who, the way that he's introduced at the start of the movie, you expect that this is a guy who's been an institution of Disney movies for like the last 17 years, and that every kid knows Leon. Yeah. Leon, played by one Alan Solomon, who between 1978 and 1988 only had 5 acting credits to his name.
One of those episode of Amazing Stories, apparently. Pretty sweet.
I don't know where this guy came from. I don't know where he went. Apparently, he was had enough worth that he was able to get himself in on the Powerball game show circa 2000.
Good on him.
And it's just bizarre. Like, you were supposed to commit to this cast of virtual
me.
Just a lot of meh. I mean, Leon was no Mr. Body.
No.
He was no Dr. Moreau. He wasn't Vincent Price in House on Haunted Hill. He wasn't even Jamie Farr in the Cannonball Run.
Oh, if only it was Jamie Farr.
Jamil Farrar.
No, okay. We're going to stop a second because I've got a little game, a little quiz for you. One of these cast members, and I will give you a choice of 4, ended up basically being locked up for, well, I'm going to find it right here, sexual molestation of minors, and they won't get out till 2142. Now, was it A, Leon, B, Blaylock, 3, C, Flinch, or D, I have to stop and think about it, so a Barf.
So
Flinch, Barf, Blaylock, or Leon?
Leon is the game master.
Yes.
Blaylock was one of the jocks.
He's the one who loved his Pabst Blue Ribbon, who jumped into the tub.
He looks the part of could be overpowering someone considerably younger. Then you had Flinch, who was kind of the nerd.
The nerd who found his mojo.
Flinch, who at one point someone says, he looks like Burt Reynolds, and I personally thought that he's not quite as handsome as Bert and Ernie.
Well, no,
I was gonna go Bert Convy before, but. And then Barf, who was one of the guys on the villain team. He was another dumb jock kind of guy.
Though he could, play a mean piano.
It's true.
So, who is locked up till 2142 of these 4 people?
So you have 2 guys who kind of look like creeps, and you have 2 guys who are kind of like the dumb jocks. I'm going to go against suggestion and go Flinch.
You are correct.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. Flinch, Joel P. Kenny, basically in 88, was convicted of child and minor molestation, multiple counts.
Ooh.
And
it's not a feel good.
He's basically get locked up for life. Too bad. He would go on to do the Malibu Bikini Shop and some movie called Rivals after this, but
where he played Beaner.
Oh, good old Beaner. So screw you, good guy team. You got a molester on your group. I guess it would make...
but it's kind of funny that you say that, because he kind of reminded me of Damone from Fast Times at Ridgemont High when I was watching it. Especially that, he kind of comes... he finds himself, which, in a coming-of-age Disney movie means that he becomes, robust sexual carnivore.
Dynamo.
I don't know, just something seemed off. But there was a lot to like about the movie. I love a lot of the movies that use the fact that they're filmed in Southern California to do a greatest hits of
actual landmarks,
going to the Walk of Fame, using Griffith Observatory, which is one of my favorite things in the world, from Rebel Without a Cause to Bowfinger
to now Midnight Madness.
Yeah, to Yes Man with Jim Carrey.
To the Rush video by Paul Abdul.
After I saw Yes Man, I believe we went to Griffith. We drove down to LA just to go to Griffith Park. One time, a friend of mine and I did that, and you had your off-brand Bob's Big Boy in there.
Oh yeah,
Johnny's JOHNIE apostrophe S Big Boy.
Yeah, whatever works. And then you got the hotel, which was the what's it called? Bonaventure. Still around. Still there. I believe True Lies has a pivotal scene at the Bonaventure now, I seem to recall.
The Hollywood Tower.
Yes.
Which may or may not have been used as the Tower of Terror.
Yeah.
And then the Pabst Blue Ribbon Factory, which I don't think any of us expected to see.
I didn't know that was based in L.A. till I saw this movie.
Pabst Blue Ribbon was the star of the movie in a way that was more expected of Blue Velvet.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's plays a pivotal in Blue Velvet. It's an infamous scene or like an exchange. In this movie, Pabst Blue Ribbon's a major plot point. And like I said, I would have provided while we were watching it, I said I would have provided Pabst Blue Ribbon, but we are actually recording from your workplace, so I thought bringing alcohol would probably be frowned upon.
Probably.
That's why
I think I signed some sort of agreement that said I wouldn't ever do that.
That's probably wise. That I.
And then another great moment. Some of the movie takes place at Los Angeles International Airport, better known as LAX. And it used one of the other great tropes of 80s comedies, Hare Krishna humor, which most significantly used by the brothers Zucker and Jim Abrams in Airplane, using David Leisure, Joe Isuzu as the focal point.
That's true.
It often makes you wonder: are Hare Krishnas still a thing?
I never. Do they hang around airports? Is that
I don't know. I don't know if they're still monopolizing the airport. I would say the only times I've run into Hare Krishnas, there was of course the Hare Krishna hardcore band Shelter, fronted by Ray Capo of Youth of Today.
Okay.
And then if you go to Berkeley and you drive down, I think it's Shattuck, all the way to its end point on University Avenue, I believe it terminates at the Krishna Copy Shop, a like basically Kinko's for Krishnas.
Oh wow!
So I don't know. I don't know.
Well, you know what? We should look into that. I'm sure you put Hare Krishna into a search, you're going to find something. I want to just point out one major plot point in this movie. Not that this movie isn't filled with them. I mean, this movie is rife with plot. I'm not plot point, but plot holes. Allow me to reiterate.
Why would any decent parent care above all other things that his son win a scavenger hunt where the prize is a plaque and bragging rights?
Well, he's so impressed by David Naughton and how upstanding and bright and intelligent and probably he probably has a picture of him under his desk. He wants him to be his son, not Stephen First, Harold, named the character. Mm-hmm. So I kind of feel I see where Harold's angst comes from. It's probably because You go into early in when he's talking to his dad, and his dad's office is filled with trophies everywhere, because obviously...
So really, a plaque might have fit right in. Just bring one home. And it was a different time then. You didn't get a trophy just for showing up.
No, you had to earn that shit. And he was so close. He was so close. I want to point out something about Leon. All right, so Leon, there's so he lives at the Hollywood Tower. I guess it's a nice apartment complex, whatever, what have you. He's a student. But he's clearly unsettled when the superintendent threatens to evict him. Here's the thing with Leon. Leon has to be independently wealthy to pull all this off. All right, so for him to be upset that he's going to be evicted seems to imply that he doesn't have money. However, he obviously has the resources to, among other things, A, rig a bank's announcement board, B, sneak a toy piano exhibit into a museum, C, pay several workers to arrange a large drawing at a brewery, D, place a message on a restaurant's announcement board, E, paint a large sign at a miniature golf course, F, rent 5 lockers at an airport, G, rig a fortune-telling machine and do a complicated reprogramming job on a video game, and H, book a room at a mid-range hotel. This all costs money. This is money that he obviously has money. Why is he upset? He should just throw money at the superintendent or whoever the landlady she is. I don't get it. With
the exception of G, I could see him doing it.
the walkers?
No. Or maybe it was H.
I don't even.
Reprogramming the video game. I think that was about the most complicated thing you had on there, which, I don't know, he's out of college, he could talk to some computer science majors. A locker is going to be, what, 50 cents?
Okay, that one.
You have, some paint at the miniature golf course. Sure, there's going to be hell to pay, but they'll paint it back. It was the 80s. This is 1980 money.
Yeah, I mean...
1980 money was you could buy a house for $20,000. You could...
Dem's the days.
Maybe not 20,000, maybe 100,000.
There's so much with his great, I'm sure he has an official name for it, I forget what it was, the all-nighter, great, whatever. So much could have gone wrong.
Well, liability these days. I actually have some experience in planning scavenger hunts. It was a tradition that was treasured when I was working at the college radio station at Sacramento State University.
Oh, lovely.
To the point that each year one was held, and I think after my first or second year, I actually took part in planning it. It's fun. It's fun putting them together, and it's fun trying to come up with the most. I tried to do a mix of trivia, in the sense of trying to give clues to where the next location is. And sometimes it was just, you would take things that you grabbed from other movies. I remember, the first one we ever planned, we asked people to procure a nude picture of Beatrice Arthur.
Oh, boy.
For, inspired by Airheads, of course.
Of course.
For, 900,000 points if they were able to pull that off.
Did somebody...
No, nobody was able to successfully... It was before the days of rampant... Photoshop on the internet, so people were honest. They didn't have the resources, and Google was only so strong at that point. It wasn't the juggernaut that we know now.
And now there's just websites about B. Arthur Bush essentially out there at this point. I'm pretty sure.
I'm sure there are. I'm sure it's much easier to find now than my work's internet filters would probably allow us to search at this point.
I just want to announce right now, this podcast is titled B. Arthur's Bush.
Jeez. And it's funny because when I opened the DVD player on my computer, my lunchtime viewing of the last week or so was still in there, which of course was...
That was Maude.
And then
it was Maude. Was it the special abortion episode?
I watched that for the first time this week.
It was very gripping stuff.
That was a two-parter.
I know.
And
it was a two-hinky.
And it was funny. That issue wasn't, or that episode wasn't the one that grabbed me the most. There was an episode right after that where the focus was one of Maude's college friends comes back, and Maude has been married several times. She has a daughter, Adrienne Barbeau, cousin of Sacramento's Anton Barbeau.
Fun fact.
And basically, like, Maude's been married. She has a kid. She has a grandchild. This woman has been focused on her career, and Maude, of course, thinks that she's just an Avon lady. Finds out that her friend from college is, like, the vice president of Avon, flying on a corporate jet. And basically, they have this... They end up blowing up at each other, because basically Maude is, feeling like... she hasn't done enough with her life, and but then she tries to make her friend feel bad about it, and then the friend turns the table on Maude, and they end up just having, like, a very real conversation at the end with each other that lasted about, like, 4 or 5 minutes, where they're just talking about, I always think that you must have it all, or you must look at me and you must want that. And they just had this very real conversation that if you took the 70s laugh track out of it, it would be like something that you'd see on like a primetime drama now. And it was just so well written that it took me aback.
It was a very special Maude.
It was more special than the abortion episode to me.
More special than the abortion episode.
I don't know. It was just kind of cool. Like, and I don't know. I guess I can't be looked at as a paragon of quality in movie and TV watching.
No. I'm sure the episode you're speaking of is pretty.
Suffice it to say, everything that happened in that episode was probably more gripping and well treated than anything that we saw in Midnight Madness.
Well, God, that's not hard to do. Here's a fun fact real quick about this movie. Joe, I'm going to probably mispronounce his last name, Belfiore, he's the corporate vice president of Microsoft. He was inspired by Midnight Madness to create a similar version of this game in real life that he called simply The Game. The Game, in turn, became this very popular thing that was adapted into its own film, which would be later directed by David Fincher. So, Michael Douglas in The Game is a movie that is from essentially a idea from Joe Belfiore, who was inspired by Midnight Madness. So, you can thank Midnight Madness for the existence.
Was The Game good?
You never seen The Game?
No, I've never seen it.
It's pretty good. I mean, it's early. I mean, that was in between Seven and Fight Club, and everyone always says it's every other Fincher movie that's good, which I totally think's BS, because I think The Game is actually pretty solid.
Well, maybe the two on the other side were the ones that were the weak link.
There you go.
Fight Club and...
Well, no, that's not true. I mean, we can play that game. All right, so you start with Alien 3, meh. 7, Game, Fight Club, Panic Room, what goes after Panic Room? Zodiac, hey. Zodiac begots whatever came before Social Network. Then Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and then you had what's after Girl with the Dragon Tattoo?
I would have to pull it up. I feel like I've worn out the Internet Movie database.
That's fine. That's fine. Anyway, I mean that's basically the timeline there. But all those movies, Aliens 3 even has its fans, and I think the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, his version is unnecessary, because I think the Danish version is totally fine. But I digress. I like Panic Room. Oh, people talking shit about Panic Room. That's a good movie. And so is The Game, incidentally. All right, we're going to wrap it up. It's that time.
But wait.
There's more.
There was.
We could talk about Starfire, the Star Wars knockoff game that appeared. Pee Wee Herman's in this movie, people. Pee Wee Herman.
Piglet.
The voice of Piglet. Melio, who's my favorite character in the movie, played by Andy Tennant, who would go on to direct movies like Fools Rush In, Sweet Home Alabama, and Hitch.
You had the greatest Deus Ex Machina in the history of motion pictures in the movie, Michael J. Fox. in his first movie, everything from being, the world's greatest Starfire video game player to, having the magic retainer that helped his, lead his brother's team to victory.
Yeah, ultimately, they couldn't have won without him.
It was...
They wouldn't have gone that. They would have totally sucked. They probably would have been last.
It gave you lessons for life for all the ladies, like use your emergency brake for the love of God.
My God, absolutely. And
apparently, like, put your car in park, because that car was at least in neutral.
No doubt. Well, you're in a rush. You don't be in a rush to get anywhere. Even if there's, it's a race. But you know what? Safety first, people. And you know what, guys? Confidence. Ladies love confidence.
For me, I felt like the movie might as well have been called either The Petty Problems of Old Folks or Just Hump Already for David Naughton and the
girl. And the girl who apparently was in the Croft Super Fun Hour. She played a character called Super Babe.
Deborah Klinger?
Deborah Klinger. The same.
Laura of the Yellow Team.
Oh, good old Laura. She was cute. I would have kicked her out of bed. Actually, I like Maggie, too. I like the leader of the Red Team. There's some okay-looking ladies in this movie. But, my heart's always going to be devoted to Peggy and Lulu.
So this was $4.93 for you.
$4.93. Would you say this is one of the 493rd best film you've ever seen?
I'd put it up there.
Okay.
I looking at my own top 500.
What was your 493? Usual Suspects?
The Usual Suspects.
Okay, better than The Usual Suspects?
I don't know. Like, I don't know if it'll. I would. Oh, this is so tough for me. I want to put it higher, but I probably shouldn't.
No, there's some credibility there.
But I feel like Kaiser Sose is so much stronger than David Naughton's not even third best movie.
There you go. And we'll just leave it at that. So we'll wrap things up for this week. Opening music provided by Austin Graham. To hear more, go to his Facebook, SoundCloud, or YouTube page by putting in Austin Oz Graham. That is Austin like the city, Oz like the wizard, Graham like the cracker. Special thanks also goes out to Engineer Travis, without which we would be not, you would not be hearing this. We will leave you with, what else? The Midnight Madness theme song, as sung by Donna Fine. F-E-I-N? Is that fine? That's fine enough. So, for Scott and myself, until next time, you perverts, I bid you adieu.